What's up, NFL fans? Welcome back to another episode of the NFL Whip Around. I'm your host, Jeff Hartman, joined by Coach Kevin Smith. If you're watching us on the Fans First Sports Network YouTube channel, do us a favor, like, subscribe to the channel. We appreciate it. If you're listening on audio side, make sure you follow the Fans First Sports Network NFL feed, FFSN NFL, so you get all of our NFL coverage right there in one spot. With that out of the way, Coach, how's it going?
It's going great, Jeff. Victory Monday for us Steeler
That's
fans.
right.
The audience at large, some people won't be sharing our optimism, but
No.
it was a good start.
It was a good start. And I'll tell you what, this morning I woke up and there was a nip in the air, and it's like week one is almost done. Obviously, we're recording this on Monday, so Monday Night Football has not happened yet. But it feels like football weather. We'll say that. It feels like football weather. I don't know if it's the same way where you are, Coach, but your team, by the way, shout out to you. You're 2-0, starting off the season strong.
Starting off the season well, man. Running the football. Good things happen when you run the football.
Old school. I love it. All right, let's start the whip around with our first topic. What team or player impressed you the most in week one? Now, we could go a lot of different areas here, and this is kind of why I went with like studs and duds to start off the show. Like, what would be a team or a player that you would label as a stud after week one?
I'm going to pick two if you don't mind.
We
real
can
quick,
do this as long as we want. There's a million different ways that we could go.
Yeah, I'll pick a player and a team. From a player standpoint, I just really thought Saquon Barkley's debut with the Eagles was impressive. Philadelphia, if you think about their history, they've never been a team that has really invested highly in a running back like Saquon Barkley. They've always had this committee of running backs, or they've had a guy that like had a Ricky Waters back in the day who was a star, but he was only in Philly for a couple of years. I mean, it seems like that offense has always revolved around a bunch of scat backs and a short passing game and maybe an athletic quarterback. And Barkley's just a different approach for this offense. And I think he gives them a kind of a bell cow, so to speak, so that when they need to really be able to pound the ball on the ground behind that offensive line, I mean, they've now got an elite guy to do it. I mean, Barkley was like the most contacted runner at or behind the line of scrimmage in the NFL last year. So now he's got some actual space to run behind Philly's great line. And that showed off. And then I just think the Patriots, man, what an impressive first week for New England going into Cincinnati and just playing small ball. I mean, you know, we mentioned the Steelers won in week one. New England kind of replicated Pittsburgh's philosophy, which was play great defense, don't turn the ball over, run the ball. Ramondre Stevenson ran for 121 yards or 120 yards. That's the same exact number of yards that Jacoby Brissett passed for. So they weren't spectacular on offense, but they played good D and they were smart. It was a smart approach. So that's a nice win there for new coach Gerald Mayo.
All right, so studs. I'm going to go with the team first, and I'm going to say that the Dallas Cowboys were studs. And I don't like saying that. I'm not a Cowboys guy, but here you have the Dallas Cowboys. The last time we saw them in a meaningful football game, they were getting their doors blown off by the Green Bay Packers in the playoffs. And, okay, Dak Prescott signs a big lucrative contract. We're going to talk about him in a little bit later. They go into Cleveland against a really good Browns defense, and they hang 33 on them. Now, there was a special teams touchdown. I think they had a punt return for a score, but they went 33-17. We all said, and we'll talk about the AFC North here shortly, that we thought that the AFC North and the Cleveland Browns were up and they're going to be a really good team. Well, if we still believe that, then Dallas answered the bell. They answered the call. Good for them. I thought CeeDee Lamb was dynamic. You know, he should be happy. He should be very comfortable in his setting and in his role within the team. Dak Prescott should be happy for all those millions of reasons that he has now. But I'm going to go with them. And then I'm actually going to go I'm going to go with a stud in a losing performance, which you might think, like, how are you going to say this? I'm going to say that Anthony Richardson was a stud. Now, you look at his box score, and it's not that impressive. He throws 9 of 19. That's very college-esque when we looked at him coming out of the draft, and he was not consistent, but he throws for 212 yards. He has 2 touchdowns. He did throw an interception, was sacked twice, but he also was the leading rusher for the Colts. 6 carries for 56 yards. I thought he was dynamic, but again, the question that I have comes with the dynamic is, can he stay healthy? We didn't see last year he couldn't stay healthy. So those are the two I'm going to go with, Coach. Any thoughts on those?
I didn't really see any of Richardson, but I watched a lot of that Dallas Cleveland game. The Cowboys are fast
Yeah.
on defense. That's what jumped out to me. Now I know Cleveland's banged up and they have a patchwork offensive line, but the get off, I mean, Deshaun Watson was under constant duress because from the moment that was snapped, the get off of that Cowboy defensive line, Micah Parsons on the edge, they were just too fast for Cleveland. I mean, when they're fast, when you're fast to the football as a defense, it puts a lot of pressure on the offense to execute really, really well. And Cleveland just couldn't match that speed. So I think defensively, Dallas is dynamic, and then offensively, they got to stay healthy, obviously, but everybody should be happy. They've all gotten paid, man.
Yeah.
So like now they can just play football. And it's way too early to say if the Cowboys are for real. They always seem to not be, but it was a good start for them.
All right, so let's go to the other side of the docket, and those are duds. The players or teams that did not play well. And honestly, as I look down the week 1 games, I see way more duds than I see
I
studs. And that's
agree,
just
man.
me.
My list of duds is way longer.
Well, let's hit them off one at a time. Well, who's your first dud?
I mean, if we were giving a dud of the week, I would give it to Daniel Jones and the New York Giants. I mean, they were terrible, man,
Awful.
terrible, and they have hitched their wagon to Daniel Jones. That is the thing that I think is the most shocking. They had the opportunity this offseason to go out and draft or acquire another quarterback, and they said, "Nope, Dan's our guy." He turned in a 17.3 quarterback rating on Sunday. That is about as bad as it gets. He got sacked 5 times, threw a couple picks. The fans were booing from just about the outset. And then they subjected the Giants to those horrendous uniforms. Did you catch their uniforms?
Ah,
They're
people thought
horrible,
the
man.
people thought the Bumblebees were bad with the Steelers back with those throwbacks. I would take the Bumblebees over those any day
Oh
of the
my
week.
God. I think I tweeted something about like it looks like the new sportswear collection from Abercrombie and Fitch. I mean, it was awful, man. So just a miserable week 1 for the Giants.
I'm actually going to go with the game you already mentioned, and it's the Cincinnati Bengals. You're hosting the New England Patriots, and I know that they've had issues in week 1. Those are well documented. But Joe Burrow's back, and you're thinking, okay, here we go. This is what we need. Jamar Chase is playing. He's not holding out because of the contract issues. And Joe Burrow goes 21 of 29 for 164 yards. He was sacked 3 times, doesn't throw a touchdown. They only run for 70 yards. Jamar Chase leads with 62 yards receiving. And then after that, the next receiver in terms of yardage is 26 yards. They could do nothing against New England. And so everyone thought, well, Joe Burrow's back. This is going to be a team that's going to compete with Kansas City in the AFC. I know it's early, but it didn't look like it. It didn't look like it. And I know that the Bengals defense they did what they should do against a really lackluster Patriots offense. Where's the Bengals offense? That's the dud. You only put up 10 points at home in week 1. I just don't think that's good enough. I don't think that's good enough. What do you think, coach?
Yeah. Meanwhile, the guy that they, you know, ushered out the door, Joe Mixon, went down to Houston and ran for 157 yards. So
Yep.
I got to be asking. I think it's interesting that we're doing duds of the week, and we haven't mentioned the Carolina Panthers who got their doors blown off. But I think isn't it just kind of like this is what we expect from the
It's
Panthers?
expected. Yes,
Yeah.
expected. That's honestly when I think about a dud, it's I expected the Panthers to lose. Did I expect them to lose 47-10? Not necessarily, but I expected them to lose the game. So that's not really a shock. But who's is that your next dud? Is the Panthers?
I don't even feel like you just alluded to. That's not. Yes, the score was surprising, but you expect with a new regime and not, they didn't do much this offseason to bolster their roster. They're kind of hamstrung by some of the trades that they've made. They've traded away a lot of talent. Um, so it wasn't surprising that they lost. It was a little surprising that they lost in the way that they did. Is that more a reflection of the Panthers just being the worst team in football, or maybe the Saints being a little bit better than people expect? I'm not sure.
All right. Do you have another? I'll go with another dud. It's an individual player. And I do enjoy this. I got to be honest. And that's Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson, the 230, whatever number it is, $1 million man, fully guaranteed, doesn't play in the preseason. Browns fans are saying, okay, They're talking about shoulder stuff. Your buddy, Kevin Stefanski, I mean, they tied their wagon. You mentioned Daniel Jones. Like, their wagon is tied directly to Deshaun Watson. And next year, his cap hit elevates to almost $72 million. It's an astronomical number because they keep kicking the can down the road. So how does he perform against the Cowboys? 24 of 45, 169 yards passing, an average of 3.8 yards. He does throw a touchdown, 2 interceptions, was sacked 6 times for 32 yards, a QBR of 9.4, and a 51.1 quarterback rating. I'm sorry, but at what point do the Browns and your buddy Stefanski say, I've seen enough? Like, what else do we have to see? Outside of the fact that we're paying this guy a king's ransom, is that what it is?
Well, I'm not going to speak for Kevin Stefanski, but I can tell you that Deshaun Watson, probably not the choice of some of the coaching staff, at least with that salary.
Yeah.
And they've shown that they can be successful with other coaches or with other quarterbacks, I should say. It's a miserable situation for Cleveland. You can't get out of it. It's guaranteed money, man.
Yeah.
And in a league with a salary cap that, yeah, you can get creative and flexible with it. But for the most part, when your quarterback's cap hit goes to 70 some $million, you're hamstrung. You've got issues with making other moves. And so Cleveland, yes, they're really banged up. When they get healthy, I still expect them to be a good football team. But they've got a small window to be successful with Deshaun Watson. And it's off to an ominous start.
Absolutely. You have any other duds?
I mean, this isn't really a dud, but this is somebody who had a miserable week 1, and it's Jordan Love.
Yes.
Simply because of the injury, the way that game ended. They lose the game. They're down to Brazil. They're playing in a soccer stadium. Guys are slipping around all night long. I mean, I wonder if the NFL, they're not going to rethink their strategy of going overseas. I think they recognize that's a cash cow, and they're kind of married to it. But they may need to really think long and hard about where they hold these games. You want to keep holding them in soccer stadiums. I mean, that turf is a little bit different than it is for football games. And now a marquee player suffers a fairly severe injury. And I don't know, man. I wonder if the NFL will take a closer look at how they go about this in the future.
I said that last week. Remember, I said I'm anxious
You
to see
did.
what the
You
turf
did.
conditions are like. JJ Watt put it well. I saw him on CBS, I think, and he said, listen, because he's like a part owner of a soccer club. And he said, these soccer fields are not built the same way as football fields. You got these light little guys, these soccer players running around, and they're making moves and stuff, but these are not 300-pound individuals that are cutting and pushing and hitting each other every single place. And they're not the same. I feel like the NFL slowly is figuring it out in London, where they've been there for years. I'm sure they've sent some people over there saying, if we're going to use this field, we got to have it better. They've got to do that wherever they go. Like, they've got to make sure, because I saw Saquon Barkley's first touch as an Eagle, a pitch left. He goes to plant his left leg, and it just gives, and he falls into a loss of like 3 or 4 yards. I mean, that's not on Saquon Barkley or the Eagles offense. It was because the turf sucked. So the turf in Brazil is a dud for sure. Absolutely. All right. We can hammer on the duds for a while, but we're going to move on. Let's talk about the AFC North. It's widely regarded as the best division in the league. And we've talked about last year and 3 teams making the playoffs, no with losing records. Well, they went a combined 1-11 in the preseason and were 1-3 in week 1. Only the Steelers winning. Every other team in the division lost. Is it possible that the North is not as good as we thought?
I mean, sure, it's certainly possible. I think the caveat to that 1-3 start over the weekend is that Baltimore went toe to toe with the Chiefs and lost down in Kansas City, but looked pretty good in doing so. And you can find reasons to sort of make arguments about the Bengals. Well, they're traditionally slow starters. I mean, this is now like 4 out of the last 5 years where they lost the opener, and several of those years they started 0-2 and rebounded to make the playoffs. And Cleveland's banged up. That's maybe sort of the optimistic side. On the more pessimistic side, you look at the Ravens offense, and outside of Lamar Jackson kind of running around and making some plays off platform, they kind of looked disjointed. It didn't look like they knew quite how to fit Derrick Henry in. And you got this kind of speed unit, but then you also have Derrick Henry, who's a little bit different type of back, and that marriage at least at first glance, didn't seem to be seamless. And Cincinnati's lost a lot of talent, and Cleveland is a mash unit with a bad quarterback right now. And I mean, the Steelers looked pretty good, but they won by scoring 18 points and only racking up 270 total yards. So can the Steelers go toe to toe with some of the more high-powered offenses in the league? I think it's fair to say that these are still 4 pretty good teams, but they all have issues. And if those issues magnify as we go forward, then this division might not wind up being as good as people anticipate.
I mean, the Steelers defense, I think, is legit. And
Yep.
yes, they give up 10 points. That touchdown thrown to Kyle Pitts was a play after the phantom offsides call by TJ Watt, which was a strip sack, and he recovered it. It would have been a turnover. It would have been a game-changing moment. And instead, they get another shot at it, and it's the lone touchdown of the game. But I'll say this. There are certain games when you look at the schedule and you think, okay, this is a game you got to win. It doesn't mean that it's the be-all, end-all. It's not a playoff game. Your season isn't over. I look at Cincinnati's loss at home against New England. That's a game that when you look at the schedule, you say, we have way bigger games ahead. This is one we have to have. And you lose that game. That hurts. Dallas at home, you hope that Cleveland would play better at home. They lose that game. Okay, Dallas is a good team. Baltimore going to Kansas City, like you said, that's a tough environment. Them putting up their latest banner. That's the kickoff week. And they did almost win that game, but they don't. The Steelers are the only ones that probably win the game they're expected to win by going to Atlanta. So when I think about this, I look at, okay, NFL week 2. What do we have in week 2 in the division? The Steelers go to Denver at 425. Bo Nix did not look very good in his first appearance in the NFL, and he's going against that Steelers defense. The Browns go to Jacksonville and play the Jaguars, who lost to the Miami Dolphins this week. Let's see here. I'm trying to find the other games. You have the Bengals at the Chiefs. Doesn't get any easier for Cincinnati there. And Baltimore, I can't find their game here. Oh, here we go. Raiders. They host the Raiders, who lost to the Chargers in week 1. I have a feeling next week it'll be a completely different story.
Yeah, and really the tale of this division isn't going to be written until November and December when they all play each other down the stretch. But when we were making preseason predictions, I think the feeling was, hey, 3 teams from the North are making the playoffs. And you can argue all you want about which 3 it was going to be, but that seemed to be the popular opinion. And now you look at it after week 1, and maybe that's not quite such a slam dunk anymore.
Yeah, and so I mentioned Bo Nix, one of the many rookie quarterbacks who played their first NFL game, official NFL game. And so let's talk about some of the rookie quarterbacks and how they did in their debuts. I mean, you're talking about Bo Nix. They lose to the Seattle Seahawks. That was on the road. It's a tough place to play. You had Jaden Daniels down in Tampa Bay losing 37-20 to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You had Caleb Williams winning, although not really impressive, 24-17 in his game. What did you think about the rookies, quarterbacks, that is?
That didn't surprise me at all because you're going into Seattle. It's Mike McDonald, the former DC of the Ravens, excellent defensive coordinator, now coming over to run that Seattle defense. Seattle's a notoriously hard place to play with those loud fans. And then you give McDonald all summer to prepare. And you knew he was going to have a great plan in place. So I'm not surprised that Nick struggled. I thought that Jaden Daniels looked pretty good. And, he had 188 yards passing and he ran for another 80 or so yards. I like the marriage of Daniels and Cliff Kingsbury. I think Kingsbury, with his resume, having worked with guys like Kyler Murray and Patrick Mahomes in the past, will know what to do with Daniels and get the most out of him. Caleb Williams was awful. I mean, he was awful. I mean, I saw a decent amount of that Bears game. And, I mean, his reads were bad. His feet in the pocket were bad. His throwing mechanics, man. I mean, you can get away with the off-platform stuff, and off-platform is just kind of coach speak for throwing the ball from different arm angles or with your feet not set properly, et cetera. I mean, you can get away with that stuff if you're Patrick Mahomes or maybe Josh Allen, or if, as Caleb Williams, you're playing Fresno State. But, man, you can't get away with that stuff in the NFL on a regular basis, and he looked bad. Trying to do some of those things. So, I mean, they're going to have to find a way to structure him better and keep him in situations where his mechanics are right, because he's just not ready to run around and make plays like he's Mahomes.
Yeah, Caleb Williams' stat line, in case those that are out there that want to know, 14 of 29 for 93 yards, a 3.2-yard average. He didn't throw a touchdown, also didn't throw an interception, was sacked twice, a QBR of 22.2, and a rating of 55.7. The reason they won the game is that Will Levis was picked off twice, one of which I think went back for a touchdown. So the Chicago Bears defense did their job in this game for sure. I agree. I think Jaden Daniels is the most impressive rookie quarterback of the group, and he didn't really light the world on fire. But then again, I don't expect a lot of rookie quarterbacks to light the world on fire. This is one of those, to use a Mike Tomlin saying, just don't kill us. Like, that's what a
Yeah.
rookie quarterback in his very first start should think. Just don't kill us. And unfortunately for some of these guys like Bo Nix threw a couple picks, that's exactly what happened. So we'll see how that pans out in the coming weeks. Let's go to our next topic. The Green Bay Packers, the Atlanta Falcons, and the Cincinnati Bengals are all teams with postseason aspirations who lost in week 1. Next week, the Packers, without Jordan Love, host the Indianapolis Colts. The Falcons, who just lost to the Steelers, have to go to Philadelphia. And the Bengals, who, again, just lost to the Patriots, we've talked about that game a lot, they go to the Kansas City Chiefs. Are all three of these teams destined to start 0-2? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I won't be surprised at all. I think Green Bay's got the best chance to win because they're at home, and Indianapolis, coming in there will try to run the football, and Green Bay's got a decent run defense. But they got to find a quarterback, man. Malik Willis is the guy right now, and he has never shown that he can succeed in the NFL. So maybe simply because they're at home and they have the weakest opponent, they've got the best shot. But going to Philly for the Falcons, going to KC for the Bengals, I don't like either one of their chances. I would think that, like, if you're Green Bay and you start 0-2, then yeah, I still feel as though that's recoverable for Green Bay if they get Jordan Love back. I think the Falcons, if they start 0-2, they're in a fairly weak division, and that's recoverable as well, especially as a lot of new pieces down there. And I think as Atlanta plays, they'll get better as the season goes. I think Cincinnati starting 0-2, especially if the Steelers get to 2-0, the Ravens win. I mean, in that AFC North, where as you get towards the back end of the season, everybody's going to kind of eat each other a little bit. You don't want to fall too far behind. So it feels like a crucial game to me for the Bengals, and they've probably got the hardest ask of those three teams.
I think all three go 0-2. I think that's exactly the question. That's the way it was phrased. I think all three teams go 0-2. Again, like there's talk of the Packers calling up Ryan Tannehill to come in and help while Jordan Love, I don't know, is it an ankle? Is it a knee? Did we ever hear an official diagnosis? Have you heard anything?
Oh, and I haven't heard any projection on how long he's out. None of that.
Yeah, I've heard like 4 to 5 weeks, but still, that's a large chunk of the season. If you stumble out of the gates in the NFC North, you're going to be left in the dust. I mean, you saw Detroit on Sunday Night Football. They started off slow, but they finished strong and they win their game. So it's going to be tough. It's going to be really tough sledding. I do want to ask you, Coach, before we get to our player profile of Dak Prescott, look ahead to week 2. What are some storylines? We talked about some of those games that you mentioned, but are there any other storylines you're looking ahead to? I think sometimes with week 1, there's so much anticipation that we have all this time to look at the week 1 matchups that sometimes on a week-to-week basis, we don't see these storylines. Do anything pop out coming into week 2?
Well, you think about it, in week 1, you have all summer to prepare.
Yeah.
And you have a lot of time to put together a good game plan. Now, can you keep it going, right? Like, think about the Seahawks. They get a home game against a rookie quarterback. They look good in doing so. Now can they keep that going in week 2, right? What's Mike McDonald got in store for that team in week 2? You look at a team that really just bottomed out, like the Giants. And, can they rebound? I mean, sometimes you get these unexpected rebound stories in week 2, right? The Patriots, who looked surprisingly good in week 1, are they going to bottom out in week 2, or can they keep it going? I think what you're looking for in week 2 is, from the teams that did well in week 1, consistency. Like the Steelers need to go to Denver and win. That's a winnable game. They need to win in Denver. They need to build on the momentum that they created with a nice road win in Atlanta. And then you look at the teams that played really, really poorly. And the question then becomes like, can they rebound? Right? Can the Giants look more competent, obviously, than they did, et cetera. So that's kind of what I'm looking for, right? The teams that started well, do they keep it going? The teams that started poorly, do they rebound?
Yeah, that's a great analytical approach. I'm more of the idiot, so I just look at like what games are on TV. And so the Thursday the Thursday game is a good one. I think Bills Dolphins on Thursday Night Football is a really intriguing matchup. I think that's going to be fun to watch. You look at the 1 o'clock slate, man, not a lot of attractive games there. I'll tell you that. Like Chargers, Panthers, Seahawks, Patriots, Saints, Cowboys, maybe Giants, Commanders, Bucks, Lions. Like none of this stuff really has much juice in 1 o'clock. 4:05. Rams, Cardinals, Bengals, Chiefs, and then Sunday Night Football, Bears, Texans, Monday Night Falcons, Eagles. Shoot me now. Gosh, that's awful. No one wants to see that except for
Bears are
Pat
getting
McAfee.
like 5 primetime games
Oh,
over the first like 8 or 9 weeks. I mean, they're going to force feed you Caleb Williams, and if he looks like he did on Sunday, that's going to be an ugly force feed.
yeah. So, hey, there you go. Some storylines looking into week 2. Let's finish up with our player profile. Dak Prescott gets paid handsomely. Do you like to talk about him? Go ahead.
Holy shnikes, $60 million a year, man. I mean, we knew he was going to get paid, and we knew most likely it was going to be. At least it's like The Price is Right, man. The dude who bids like $1 more than the next guy. He was going to be like he's going to get I thought he was going to get a little bit more. 55 million annually was the highest salary, and he got 60 million annually. And I didn't see the guaranteed money. You might know what that is, but I'm sure it's astronomical.
It's wild.
It is. On one hand, again, we always say this: good for Dak Prescott. I'm always happy to see these guys get this generational wealth that's going to hopefully hook their families up for decades to come. And on the other hand, the Cowboys did what they felt they had to do to lock up their franchise guy, who certainly got off to a great start on Sunday. But Dak Prescott has never been beyond the divisional round of the playoffs. He's never taken the Cowboys to a championship game, to a Super Bowl. For him to now become the highest paid player in NFL history, and he's never been to a championship game, again, I know that's the nature of the business, but it just seems kind of out of whack to me.
Yeah. So here's the numbers. A 4-year contract extension worth upwards of $240 million. And it includes a historic $231 million guaranteed dollars.
Oh, what they couldn't guarantee that last $9 million after guaranteeing him the $231 million. They're like, no, that last $9 million is off the table.
Yeah, I mean, come on, Dak. Like you're asking a little too much. But I mean, yeah, seriously, it's not a fully guaranteed contract, but it basically is. There's only $9 million there. And I think that what did we talk about this offseason? We talked about the Cowboys and how they had, what was it? Next year is like some $60+ million in cap space. And you said like that's going to be allocated to CD Lamb and Dak Prescott. And boom, there goes that cap space. And so this is where you had to hope that the jump in the salary cap is significant enough that maybe they pay Micah Parsons. There's a bunch of other players on that team that are going to want money as well. This is the problem that comes with having big time players at multiple positions. The Bengals are going to go through it with Jamar Chase when he gets his deal. It's a challenge. The 49ers are going to go through it and they have to pay Brock Purdy. So like you said, good for Dak Prescott, because anytime a player gets the bag, look, hey, these careers are short. Get your money while you can. But man, every time we talk about this, we all say the same thing. Will it ever end? And I think the answer is a resounding no. Am I right?
No, it won't. As long as the NFL keeps raking in the revenue, it's going to fall back into the laps of the players.
All right, Coach. What are you coming up on the call sheet this week? Anything fun and exciting?
Yeah, well, last week we did like 5 storylines to watch heading into week 1. We're going to revisit them quickly and see did those storylines, how did they all play out? And then we'll do something similar for week 2, projecting into week 2. I'm gonna pick out a couple plays too that I really liked from week 1, and just sort of talk through them a little bit. I thought there was some creative scheming that went down in the first week.
Totally forgot. This can be a weekly segment. Our fearless predictions. Last week we were both 0-2. You said take the Cardinals going into Buffalo. At one time, it looked.
We were both
good.
close, though. We were both close.
I said take the underdogs getting points in both primetime Thursday and Friday, and Isaiah Likely, gosh, if he could get his toes in, that's a different story. And then if Jordan Love doesn't go down, but that's neither here nor there. We both go 0-2. Do you have any fearless predictions for this week?
I'll be honest. I didn't look at the schedule carefully in order to really think about that. And I want to say something stupid right now, like Daniel Jones and the Giants, or who they play the Commanders.
The Commanders, yeah.
Damn it, I'm going right there, Jeff. Daniel Jones leads the Giants to a big victory. Mark it
All
down.
right.
Call Pez. Tell him to put in the bet.
My bold prediction is take the Buccaneers getting 6.5 points against Detroit next week. That's my fearless prediction. Most people are going to say the Lions are going to roll. I think the Buccaneers are a lot better than people think. They're getting 6.5 points. Take Tampa Bay over Detroit. That's my fearless prediction. So, all right, Coach, good stuff as always. Thank you for your time. Make sure you check out all of our content on our Fans First Sports Network YouTube channel, as well as on the FFSN NFL feed. Until next time, have a great week, everyone. We'll see you on the next whip round.